Namaskaram. Hello and welcome to episode number 106 of Daily Global Insights. Today is the 25th of February. As always, I have with me Sridhar Chityalaji. Sridharji, Namaskaram and welcome to PGurus channel.
Namaskar and good morning, and hope you all have a wonderful day today.
Yes, sir. And the main points for today's bulletin is 9 out of 23 nominees have been confirmed by the Senate, with the 14 to follow. Sridharji will give the details. And US will be seeking to re-enter UN Human Rights Council after Trump had pulled out of it. You might remember that because of the UNHRC membership, under the Obama administration, between 50,000 to 150,000 people got direct citizenship, and this is under the refugee status. It's a very interesting procedure. If you become a member of UNHRC, Sridharji will give you the details. The third thing is the Fed system shut down for about 40 to 50 minutes today, calling it operational error. Luckily, the damage was contained, and we'll have a little bit more details shortly. And markets rise to record levels after Schumer's assurances on the stimulus and Powell on the economy. So back to the main news of the day. Senate has confirmed 9 out of 23 candidates for the current cabinet of Biden and Kamala Devi Harris. Sridharji, can you list the names of the people who have been confirmed so far and the ones that are waiting to confirm, if there are some surprises that we may expect?
Great. Okay, Klein is confirmed, who is the chief of staff. Linda Thomas, who is the United Nations ambassador. There was some dispute and discussions around her proximity to China, etc., and her decisions around that. McDonough as Veteran Affairs. Vilsack as the Agricultural Secretary. People forget Biden and Harris have to be still formally confirmed. This was the day on January 6th when all the results came in, and when the counting kind of began. And the initial debate started around, this is the Republicans objecting and seeking some kind of an audience in terms of communicating what exactly transpired, not to overturn the elections, but to make their case in terms of alleged infringements, fraud, and such types of activities, and what needs to happen in future. And then the riots broke out, and then they came back after the riots and quickly sat and confirmed. So Biden and Harris are confirmed, president and vice president. Haynes is confirmed as the Homeland Secretary. Antony Blinken is confirmed as the Secretary of State. Austin is confirmed as the Defense Secretary. Buttigieg is confirmed as the Department of Telecommunications, and Mayorkas as the, if I am correct,
Homeland Security, I think.
Yes.
Homeland Security, yeah.
Yeah, Homeland Security. And then you have three things which are going on currently. One is Holland, who is she is there as the Biden's Interior Secretary, as the Interior pick for the Senate. The Senate is going through its due process, and she was asked the question whether she supports Keystone Pipeline. She basically said she believes in shutting down the Keystone Pipeline. So there are some, because she's Interior. There's lots of such little controversial issues that have kind of propped up, and so there's been a delay in her confirmation. The most controversial is Neera Tanden. She's being viewed political both on the Democratic side as well as on the Republican side. Questions have been raised on as her nomination as the Office and Management and Budgets, but White House is standing firm, so the count may be delayed. Whether she'll get through remains to be seen, but right now the White House is holding firm. As a second. The third is Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, which is another important announcement. I think we have covered that. That's also currently under process. So those are the three things which are currently under process in terms of the cabinet or the ministry of Biden and Harris to be completed. It's quite slow. It's January 20th. We are today, end of February. The administration is not yet in place.
The House Democrats want Biden to give up being the sole authority to launch nuclear weapons. So, which section of the House Democrats are demanding this, sir?
From your state, California. So therefore, there are three of the people. I mean, I carefully wanted to study, where this thing would come from, right? Right top starts right at the top. Nancy Pelosi, right? Another avid Democrat from California. There's four of them. I think Jim, I forget his name, and then you can remember. So all four are from the state of California. I would have expected from Texas or some way, but never mind. It's from California. And Nancy Pelosi rushed to while President Trump was in transition. She rushed to the head of the armed forces and the defense secretary and so on to say, please make sure that you don't press the nuclear button. This is on the threshold of the dispute with Iran, and there was an imminent kind of action perceived. And Israel basically had threatened and prepared the nations, in case you guys don't act, we will do.
Well, surprises never cease, do they? I mean, we saw Mitch McConnell. He was very aptly cartooned as a tortoise with two heads, one saying yes and one saying no. And Nancy Pelosi, what, 40 years of experience in the House as a congresswoman, and suddenly she feels that the president should not be the sole authority to launch nuclear weapons. I mean, this is so. Where would you characterize her, sir? Is she a progressive or a liberal or a moderate?
She stands between progressive and liberal. She does not stand as someone between centrist and liberal, right? Historically, I mean, this is a known fact. Historically, everybody generally with non-conservative discipline tended to move towards this centrist mindset. The last time we had centrist in Democratic Party was Bill Clinton. After Bill Clinton, we have lost the agenda. In fact, I think the Democrats have lost the plot after Bill Clinton. A great intellectual, a person who had control of the world affairs and is a great manager of the economy. Notwithstanding that there was both opposition, the Republican Party in Senate and House, he worked quite well to get things done. So I think after that, and I think the Obama years is the period of decay, but it's being revved up. Anyway, just to kind of not to deviate and lose piece of time here, what you're witnessing is an agenda of dismantling the idea of a nation state and a government. That's the agenda that you are seeing. Okay, first, the president should not be the sole person controlling the nuclear weapons, number one. Today we had Madam Cortez saying immigration and customs enforcement should be dismantled and it should not be treated as a crime. So you can have drug traffickers, you can have criminals, everybody can come in, no enforcement. Number three, decriminalize the borders and make the borders porous for anybody to come. So these two. Then she, and along with Ilhan Omar, was behind this defunding the police movement. Defund the police movement. So then you have the issue around the whole human rights, right? So therefore, the human rights should be taken up and they decide in the House who is violating human rights, who is not violating. For example, to them, China is not violating human rights, though they say sanctions should be imposed and this and that and so on. You will find that China will not be. Then they say India is a violator of human rights, but Pakistan is not a violator of human rights in Balochistan. So you have this kind of a pattern that is emerging. Illegal aliens should be given aid. Felons should be given small business. So you have a systematic pattern that is evolving, which is around the deconstruction of the state. That would be the best characterization. In fact, I've seen some of the Washington Post articles which talks about which one should not have a nationalist agenda, right? So you even had kneeling down before, for national anthem is not mandated. Bowing to the flag and swearing allegiance to the flag and flag hoisting is not required. So you're beginning to see the concept of, I mean, to not to sound repetitive, this concept of they call this non-nationalism, deconstruction, very much reminds you of a communist socialist state. That's where they want to push it to. So these are all the kind of actions that you are seeing evolve. By the way, Supreme Court, just to kind of wrap up that whole discussion, put a pause on hold on Biden's actions. Biden had requested no deportation should occur during these 100 days. The courts have said no, that will continue.
Thank you, sir. And House demands answers on Biden's tests, Biden team's Iran talks during Trump term. We talked about this, and this is interesting that I'm taking the hint here that it's probably all the Republicans in the House who are demanding this. And I will give you a chance to respond to that, sir. Just give me one more time because we're running a little bit late. I just want to make sure that we cover more than one topic. House Republicans also ask FBI for briefing on Rep. Swalwell's ties with the CCP spy Fang Fang. We've talked about it a lot. So both these things, I think the House Republicans are also getting energized.
Well, they're getting energized because they slowly, all these things are coming out because of the reporting of the press. If the press doesn't remind them, the media doesn't remind them, it tends to lose focus. So these things are coming up, along with Stefanik's, voting to defund universities and schools which have connections and funding from with CCP links. So that's also kind of coming down the pipe. This was one of the big people who raised this was Mike Pompeo. Mike Pompeo raised a huge hue and cry and the amount of funding, etc., etc. Then there was a global report which said that 1.95 million people are embedded into various kind of things, mostly Britain and United States and other parts of the world. So you're beginning to see the unraveling of some of these things on the contra side of the fence. Yeah.
Now, we are also seeing that some of the contenders for the 2024 presidential nomination of the Republicans are beginning to fall in line. Mike Pence said that he praised Trump in a meeting, and Mitt Romney also thinks that Trump's nomination is a shoo-in. So we can see that there was a brief power struggle. Perhaps Mitt Romney had fought even more than Mike Pence did, because we should remember that Liz Cheney, this is all same group that did whatever they did during the impeachment time. And now there's also news coming down the wire that Dominion and Smartmatic have serious shot at victory in the election defamation suits. So this is according to an expert. What can you tell us about this, sir? Why does this expert think that they have a good chance at winning these lawsuits?
It's a Yale law professor who has given his opinion. Typical with, because sometimes now these days the viewers are saying, we are covering only the right side of the fence. We are not covering the left side of the fence. This is an example of the left side of the fence, which is to say that, hey, they have a very good shot. So which means that, Rudy Giuliani and, Sidney Howell and Lynn Black, what's the last?
Linwood.
Yeah, would be, we are going to be liable. Very clear, this particular lawyer stayed away from Fox News. He says Fox News is a news. They report news. They're not expressing an opinion. This is the news that came out. They're reporting. So therefore, that's out of the window. What just simply implies. And then he goes on in that in his kind of press statement. Well, however, there's still a big hill to climb to prove and make the case that it deserves. Then he also gives another contradiction, which is to say, well, they may not get $1 billion. They maybe just get a reprimand and a small kind of contribution. So the whole purpose of this headline is to again catch the imagination of the people and force people to read and give this sensationalism to the companies. So anyway, so I think the whole thing is a smogwash, as we can say, and I think also to remind people, United States justice system very much runs on political lines as much as any other place in the world, especially on political matters. On other matters, it may be different, but on political matters. For example, Stacey Abrams, and I forget the name of her sister, who is the Supreme Court judge in Georgia. Basically, when you file a case, she gets a favorable kind of outcome in that election issue around extending the deadlines for certain communities and certain neighborhoods. Then you go to Pennsylvania, you have a very similar. You go to Wisconsin, you have very similar. So what you're seeing is same thing. On people can argue on the Democratic side, what about the abortion bill? Okay, if you're a conservative, you support, you basically, yes, about pro-life. If you're a Democratic-dominated Supreme Court, it'll be pro-choice. So here, on the political and sensitive matters, it very much runs the course in United States along the way who has the presiding power. That's why occupying these positions and winning the elections and at the right point having the opportunity to fill up these seats, makes or kills the futuristic action of the way the justice is going to be dispensed.
In global news, United States is going to seek a seat at the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, undoing what Trump had done. And this is going to have some consequences. So, in not only are people going to be welcomed at our borders, the illegals, there's also going to be another way for them to gain entry into the United States, which is through UNHRC. Sridharji, I'd like you to spend about a minute on this because we are running a little bit behind, and then I'll start catching up with other news.
Well, I think the Human Rights Council has two essential elements. One is the refugee program, and it just mandates them to take specific number of people who are, what you call displaced, global kind of a crisis situation in their respective nations. So that's one mandated or mandatory obligations. And as Sree pointed out, quite a few people came in during that particular phase, especially you saw that Arab Spring, and that displaced so many in Syria and Iraq and Mosul and so on and so forth. The second point is this allows the socialists to run their agenda, right? One of the countries that needs to be worried about is India. United Nations, a US sitting in the United Nations human rights with many other members who are typically hostile. It was United States which actually used its exercise of veto, or it just kind of said, United Nations is redundant, we couldn't be bothered. So you will find that China has clearly run its riot act just to say Hong Kong, Uyghurs, Tibet, Taiwan, out of question. Don't even bring it to the table, right? So these are the two things that one has to be careful of, as to what comes out of it with the present regime making it to the Human Rights Council.
And in other news, the United States says that it supports Japan's sovereignty over Senkaku Islands. Germany prepares way for its troops to stay in Afghanistan. Boris Johnson indicates that UK will not pull out of the Olympic Games in Beijing despite their abuse over Muslims of the Uyghur region. Now, Facebook is going to invest $1 billion in news industry after the Australian row. India's 130 billion defense update sparks interest from arms suppliers arms makers, such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Saab, Israel, Rafael, Advanced Systems, and France. Everyone is now throwing their hat into the ring. And lastly, Indonesian and Myanmar's foreign ministers meet to discuss an ASEAN-based resolution for Myanmar. Would you like to add on what is happening with Facebook's resolution, sir?
Facebook is basically Australian government forced that they have to pay money to news, the news services, and that's the only way they will be allowed to broadcast the news content via the social channels. They agreed to it. Otherwise, they were ready to be banned because of these questions around, where do they sit? If it's a platform, it is this, it is that, and so on. But surreptitiously, a lot of the news content was being pushed through the social channels and nothing was being paid. So I think that this is one way by which enforcement can be brought, and they can be brought under a specific purview. Are you quoting Epoch Times? Are you quoting Newmax? Are you quoting Fox News? Are you quoting Channel 7 News, Channel 10 News, SBS News, ABC News, etc. in Australia, right? In the United States, it's different. So the story is that now they are forcing them to comply within a box.
On global COVID news, there is a rush now for the COVID vaccines as more and more positive news is coming from various countries. In fact, Moderna is going to commence trials for COVID booster shots for even the variants that have been reported from South Africa and so on. Australia commences mass vaccinations. Thailand and Vietnam took first deliveries on Wednesday. I'm assuming this is from India, sir. Which country did Thailand and Vietnam get their first deliveries?
Vietnam is from Sinovac, and Thailand is AstraZeneca.
Okay,
I think
so
Pfizer. Sorry, Pfizer.
Okay.
Pfizer. AstraZeneca was South Korea, and then they have taken collection of the Pfizer as well.
South Asian nations assisted by India have also kicked off their programs. We've been telling you about various countries where India has been carrying out its vaccine diplomacy. We'll be updating you more in the days and weeks to come. As far as markets are concerned, markets rise to record levels after Schumer assurances on stimulus, Powell on the economy. And Schumer went on to say that the stimulus bill will be passed by Friday and will be on President's desk by March 14th. And I'll let you answer on this one, sir, after I do the next line. Fed Chair Powell, inflation and employment levels are well within the Fed objectives, and therefore the rates are going to stay low. What's your take on it, sir? What do you expect for the United States for 2021? Are we going to have a record growth year, 6%, 7%? What are your thoughts?
I think that we have already reported the growth rates are somewhere going to be between 5, in my view, 5 and 6 to 6.5%. We moved up the first, the Fed had put 4.3%. Then that was matched by Goldman Sachs with 5. Now JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs have revised their estimates to about, somewhere, greater than 6%. So I don't think I'll say that it's 7% or 8%, but it's somewhere, definitely greater than 6%, but definitely within the band of 5 to 6% because of so much of cash. You will see in the ticker, the $1 billion program, $120 billion bond purchase, asset purchase program continues. There's this $1.9 trillion stimulus. Mind you, there's another $1 trillion from the previous rescue and relief that has not been spent. They also are contemplating another stimulus program. So there's going to be plenty of cash. If you're not in stock market, I think this is the best year to be in stock market based on all the numbers that one is seeing, at least in a US context.
That's all for today, folks, and we'll be back tomorrow, same time, same websites. And we urge you to subscribe to our channel and also become a member of our YouTube channel. It'll give you a lot of benefits, and these benefits will be revealed with time as we go along. And also, please donate to PGurus. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll be back. See you tomorrow. Namaskaram, Sridharji, and we will see you tomorrow.
Namaskar, and have a wonderful day.